I'm on Siesta Key, where there was a major Category 3 hurricane that hit landfall here a couple days ago. And I want to just show you some footage. I have some B-roll footage of what's left of Siesta Key right now, but I'll quickly spin around here at this iconic spot where so many people come to enjoy Siesta Key. This sign, in fact, is sort of the remnant of what is left of Siesta Key right now. And how bad did it actually hit our area? Well, projections said it's coming to Siesta Key, but me personally, having been a resident here of Sarasota for 40 plus years, have been told about this ancient belief that Siesta Key is a protected area that will never get hurt by a hurricane because of the ancestors, and they believe that this to be a sacred place. And that has been true for me for the last 40 plus years. Siesta Key has been pretty much immune from the hurricanes, except a couple weeks ago we had one that came through, created a lot of flooding, and from that there was a lot of debris, and that created a problem because after all the flooding that took place a couple of weeks ago, then all of a sudden we have a hurricane coming our way. And if the hurricane were to hit Sarasota, Siesta Key, how devastating would that be? Not just from the standpoint that we're going to be hit by a hurricane, but by the standpoint that there was so much debris left on the streets. People were taking all their flooded belongings, couches, furniture, appliances, leaving it on the street. And there wasn't enough time to take all that away before the hurricane came. So that leftover debris can become a major problem, because now it can become a projectile, a missile for all the residents in the area as all this debris was scattered. So when I show you some of these photos, you'll see that it's still there, the debris is there, but the hurricane dispersed it, and it's just a real mess. So yesterday was the day after the hurricane, and my lady and I wanted to get on the island, but they were not allowing cars to come on the island. So we walked over the bridge, and we walked over here to the public beach just to see all the situations. Now, cars were not allowed over here except for emergency vehicles, and there were residents. So we had a chance to speak with residents that did not listen to the warnings that you must evacuate. And there is that thing, if you're not going to evacuate an area, write your name on your arm, because they'll be able to identify your body if after the map, because people that stay in an area that should be evacuated during a hurricane, your risk of death is very good. So that was the case. So I did speak with a resident that stayed here on the island during the hurricane, and he was on the second floor, and he described the situation, but it was very similar to the situation that I experienced. Now, I chose not to leave Sarasota, and why? Because it's problematic. You know, it's problematic either way, whether you stay or whether you go. And the challenge is if you're in an evacuation zone, it depends on what grade of evacuation. If you're in a severe evacuation zone like the barrier islands, a mobile home, a dangerous area, you absolutely need to leave, because your risk of death is extremely good. And so depending on where you are. Now, I live about 10 miles from shore, but it was still a very dramatic event going through the hurricane, because the hurricane passed right over our house. And what was interesting about that, I'd never experienced that before, because I've lived in Florida for all these years and have gone through many hurricanes, but not one where it went right over us. So we actually had the eye of the hurricane go right over our area. And what was different about that experience from times past was that when the eye went over, we started to feel the winds, and then it got increasingly intense. And then all of a sudden you're starting to hear trees fall, limbs break, and we were bunkered down. And what's really difficult is you're in your house is all boarded up, so it's as dark as can be. You lose power, you lose internet, you don't know what the outside world is doing, and you're bunkered down until you have some kind of reprieve that it's okay to leave. So we were hearing all the crashing trees and the fallen trees, and then all of a sudden it went completely silent, and thought, okay, it's over with, it's done. And we walked outside, and there were other neighbors outside as well. And one of the neighbors said, you know, we're just in the eye of the hurricane. This is the very center of the hurricane, and we're safe right now, but we need to get back in our houses quickly because we're going to get the brunt of the wind again at the same severity that we had just moments before. Now that eye of the hurricane lasted about 45 minutes, so it was peaceful, calm, and in my mind I thought, okay, we're done, the hurricane's over with. And then the destruction started all over again. There's nothing to do. You're in your house, it's black, no power. I went to bed, and when I woke up, we went outside and saw all the destruction in our neighborhood, and it was severe. I mean, the roads were impassable. There were so many trees down, and a guy pulls up in a motorcycle and a chainsaw and says, let me give you an estimate to clean up your yard. So we negotiated a fee, and I said, well, if you do a good job for me, you're going to get the rest of the neighborhood. And he did. The neighbors were actually standing in line to have this guy clean their yards, and he was there all day. And I was just fortunate because I do live in a community with a lot of support, but not everyone's so lucky in these situations. And in fact, there's one home in our area where the lady's in her 90s, and she didn't have the resources to either board up, and her home had the most destruction in the area. There's several fallen trees on her home, and she doesn't have the financial means to do this, and she's in her 90s. So as a neighbor, we're all pitching together. We're seeing what can we do to help her out, because that's what neighbors do. And that's the nice thing about a hurricane is it's not always bad, because you do get to know your neighbors, and hopefully you have good neighbors and you come together in situations like that to help each other. During the hurricane, I literally get a couple texts from people that I've been speaking with that are considering selling, and their texts were, we absolutely want to sell. We want out. Please tell us how we can put our home on the market. We're ready to go. So I'm like, okay. And that was interesting because even some of our neighbors that were happy are saying, I'm done. I'm done with Florida. I want to be out of this. This hurricanes, we had one 2 weeks ago that it didn't even hit us. It just came up the coast, but the flooding from that was quite drastic. And now we had a direct hit of wind, and we see so much destruction. Why would anybody want to live in Florida? Why? You ask that situation. And as I mentioned, I've been a resident here for so long that I'm used to this. This is my normal. And when it becomes your normal, it doesn't feel so awkward. But when you have a couple hurricanes in a row, and within a 2-week period of time where you haven't had a hurricane, and even Siesta Key, it's supposed to be a protected area. We're not supposed to have hurricanes. All of a sudden you have a hurricane. You say, is it time to leave Florida? This is not something I want as I retire. And I think about a situation that happened to me actually a few months ago. I was in a car accident where the other driver died. And I was in my lane, and the other driver decided to come into my lane speeding at 70 plus miles an hour, and he was going to hit me head on. There was no doubt that I had to make a decision. And what does this correlate with hurricanes? Well, hurricanes the same way. You're here, you have a little bit of time. This hurricane's gonna come, and you have some time to think through, should I stay or should I go? And if I'm going to stay, what do I need to do to protect myself and bunker down? So back to this car accident I was in. Cars coming at me 70 miles an hour, head on. And I said, if you're gonna hit me, you're not gonna hit me straight on. You may hit my, if you're gonna hit me, it's not gonna be a direct hit. And I moved my car, actually I pulled it into the ditch, and the car immediately hit the car behind me, which was bigger than his car, and he died. It was just a tragic situation. I saw the whole thing happen. That's kind of consistent with the hurricane. I mean, we know it's coming. You have time to think through this, but the decisions you make are a life and death decision at that point. And if I was on Siesta Key and they said evacuate, and if you don't put your name on your arm, we'll find your body and we'll be able to identify you, well, then you leave, right? You take the responsibility of saying it's time to go. And if you're not in a dangerous situation, how can you protect yourself the best you can? Even in an area that we're in right now, very protected, I am worried about my neighbor that doesn't have the resources to clean up their property, and actually they didn't have the resources to protect themselves, and they did the best they can. And I think that's what it always gets down to, is people do the best they can with their situation. But it's a time when we have these setbacks in life, to come together, help other people out, and certainly that's what I want to do. So where's Siesta Key right now? It's not habitable to stay here. Why? Because there was no water here yesterday. I don't know if the power's back on. The roads are not safe in a lot of areas. The lights are down. If you don't need to come here, don't come here. And I say that sincerely. There's no reason to be on Siesta Key right now. And there's so much debris and trash. It's just, it needs some time to heal, and it will be back. But you can see the beaches are absolutely calm and beautiful. It's a pretty place, and the challenge when you live in paradise, everyone else wants to live there too. But this I've never seen as quiet as it is right now. It will return to normal, and that's my report on Siesta Key. And I hope I've been helpful to you. If I have, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. In closing, I hope you're safe, and I wish you well.